The year was 1913. It was a time when the world was on the brink of monumental change, yet the people of Russia were blissfully unaware of the storm that was about to engulf them. Russia celebrated 300 years under the Romanov dynasty. The streets were filled with jubilant crowds, and the air was thick with the scent of flowers and the sound of music. It was a time of grandeur and festivity. The palaces were adorned with the finest decorations, and the ballrooms echoed with laughter and dance. Yet, a shadow lurked beneath the surface. The opulence masked the growing discontent among the people, a discontent that would soon erupt into revolution. The Romanov reign, like the waning days of winter, was coming to an end. The last snowfall symbolized the final days of an era that had once seemed eternal. Czar Nicholas II, the last of his line, was a man ill-suited for the throne. His reign was marked by indecision and a lack of vision, qualities that would prove disastrous for the empire. He was shy, indecisive, and deeply devoted to his family. His love for them was evident, but it often clouded his judgment and weakened his resolve. He preferred the quiet life to the burdens of leadership. The responsibilities of ruling a vast empire weighed heavily on him, and he often sought solace in the tranquility of his private life. Nicholas's wife, Alexandra Feodorovna, was a German princess. Her foreign origins and strong-willed nature made her a controversial figure in the Russian court. She was deeply religious and fiercely protective of her family. Her faith was her anchor, and she clung to it with unwavering devotion, especially in times of crisis. Her reserved nature and foreign birth did not endear her to the Russian people. Many saw her as an outsider, someone who could never truly understand the Russian soul. They saw her as cold and aloof. Whispers of her undue influence over the Tsar began to circulate, fueling the fires of suspicion and resentment. Whispers of her influence over the Tsar, deemed excessive and unwarranted, began to circulate. These rumors only served to deepen the divide between the monarchy and the people. The Tsar and Tsarina had 5 children: Olga, Tatiana, Maria, Anastasia, and Alexei. Each child was cherished and loved, but their lives were far from ordinary. Alexei, the heir apparent, was a hemophiliac. His condition was a closely guarded secret, one that added to the family's burdens. His illness cast a long shadow over the family. Every injury, no matter how minor, was a potential death sentence, and this constant fear weighed heavily on them all. They lived in constant fear of his life. The Tsarina in particular was consumed by worry, her every waking moment dedicated to protecting her son. Alexandra, desperate to save her son, turned to mysticism and faith healing. She sought out anyone who claimed to have the power to heal, no matter how unconventional their methods. This led her to Grigori Rasputin, a self-proclaimed holy man, whose influence over the royal family would have devastating consequences. His presence in their lives would become a source of scandal and controversy. The Romanovs, oblivious to the gathering storm, continued their lives. They enjoyed their time together, unaware of the impending doom that loomed over them. Little did they know that their world was about to be shattered. The dark clouds on the horizon were a harbinger of the chaos and destruction that was to come. The year 1914 would usher in a new era, one marked by war, revolution, and the fall of an empire. The Great War would be the catalyst for the end of the Romanov dynasty. The Romanovs, once symbols of power and stability, would become victims of their own history. Their story is a poignant reminder of the fragility of power and the inexorable march of time. Alexandra Feodorovna was an enigma to the Russian people. Born a German princess, she never quite grasped the nuances of Russian court life. Her reserved nature, often mistaken for arrogance, alienated her from the aristocracy. The common folk saw her as distant and uncaring. Whispers of the German woman and her undue influence over the Tsar began to spread. Alexandra's piety was another point of contention. She was deeply religious, finding solace in her faith. However, her embrace of mysticism and spiritualism raised eyebrows. The Russian Orthodox Church, a pillar of the empire, viewed her with suspicion. Her reliance on spiritual advisors, deemed charlatans by many, further tarnished her reputation. The birth of Alexei, the long-awaited heir, brought joy, but also immense worry. His hemophilia, a rare blood disorder, made him fragile. Alexandra, desperate to save her son, became increasingly secluded. She poured her energy into finding a cure, consulting doctors and mystics alike. Her desperation made her vulnerable, a weakness exploited by those who sought to gain influence. The arrival of Grigori Rasputin, a self-proclaimed holy man, marked a turning point. Rasputin, with his hypnotic gaze and claims of healing powers, captivated Alexandra. She believed he could save her son. His influence grew, extending beyond the confines of the royal nursery. He became a confidant and advisor, his presence casting a long shadow over the Tsarina and by extension the throne itself. Alexei Nikolaevich, the Tsar and Tsarina's only son, was a delicate child. From the moment he was born, his health was a constant source of anxiety for the royal family. His parents, Nicholas II and Alexandra, watched over him with a mix of love and fear, knowing that any minor injury could have devastating consequences. Born with hemophilia, he was prone to internal bleeding, often triggered by even the slightest bump or bruise. This genetic disorder, passed down from his mother, meant that his blood couldn't clot properly, leading to prolonged and often life-threatening bleeding episodes. Each episode was a dance with death, a terrifying reminder of the fragility of life. The royal doctors, despite their best efforts, were often helpless in the face of his condition. The sight of Alexei in pain was a heart-wrenching ordeal for his family, especially his mother, Alexandra. The royal palace, usually a place of grandeur and ceremony, became a prison of worry and hushed whispers. The opulent halls and rooms filled with treasures and history now echoed with the sounds of concern and the quiet steps of those trying to help the young heir. Alexandra, consumed by her son's illness, became increasingly isolated. Her once vibrant social life dwindled as she dedicated herself to caring for Alexei. The weight of her son's suffering bore heavily on her, and she found herself withdrawing from the world outside the palace walls. She sought solace in her faith, desperately praying for a miracle. The Tsarina turned to the icons and relics of the Russian Orthodox Church, hoping that divine intervention would bring relief to her ailing son. Her prayers were fervent and constant, a mother's plea for her child's life. She consulted the best doctors, but to no avail. The finest medical minds of the time were summoned to the palace, each bringing their expertise and hope. Yet despite their efforts, traditional medicine seemed powerless against this hereditary curse. The treatments available were rudimentary and often ineffective, leaving the family in a state of perpetual despair. The sense of helplessness was overwhelming, and the Tsarina's desperation grew with each passing day. Driven to the edge, she turned to unconventional methods, embracing mysticism and spiritualism. In her quest for a cure, Alexandra began to explore the realms of the mystical and the unknown, seeking out those who claimed to have healing powers beyond the scope of traditional medicine. It was during this time of despair that Grigori Rasputin, a Siberian peasant with a reputation for healing, entered their lives. Rasputin's arrival was shrouded in mystery and controversy, but Alexandra was willing to try anything to save her son. Rasputin, with his piercing eyes and enigmatic presence, claimed to possess divine powers. His aura of mysticism and his reputation as a healer captivated the Tsarina, who saw in him a glimmer of hope. Whether through hypnotic suggestion or sheer luck, he seemed to ease Alexei's suffering. Rasputin's methods were unconventional, but they appeared to bring some relief to the young boy, and that was enough for Alexandra. Alexandra, desperate for a cure, clung to him as a drowning person clings to a lifeline. Her faith in Rasputin grew stronger with each passing day, and she began to rely on him not just for Alexei's health, but for her own emotional support. Rasputin's influence over the Tsarina grew with each passing day. He became a fixture in the royal household, his presence a constant reminder of the family's desperate situation. He became her confidant, his counsel sought on matters both personal and political. Rasputin's advice extended beyond Alexei's health, touching on the governance of the empire and the personal lives of the royal family. This did not sit well with the Russian court. The nobility viewed Rasputin with suspicion and disdain, seeing him as an outsider who had gained undue influence over the Tsarina. Whispers of dark magic and manipulation began to circulate. Rumors spread like wildfire, painting Rasputin as a sinister figure who used his supposed powers for his own gain. To the outside world, Rasputin was a charlatan, a dangerous influence on the Tsarina. His presence at court was a source of scandal and controversy, and many believed he was leading the royal family astray. To Alexandra, however, he was a savior, the only one who could protect her beloved son. In her eyes, Rasputin was a beacon of hope in a world filled with uncertainty and fear. Grigori Rasputin, the Siberian peasant who had risen to such dizzying heights, became a figure of immense controversy. Born in a small village, Rasputin's journey to the heart of Russian power was nothing short of extraordinary. His mystical aura and supposed healing abilities earned him a place in the royal court, where he quickly became indispensable to the Tsarina. His influence over the Tsarina was undeniable. Tsarina Alexandra, desperate to save her ailing son, believed Rasputin was sent by God to protect her family. This belief only deepened her reliance on him. He whispered in her ear, shaping her decisions, controlling access to the royal family. Rasputin's words carried weight, and his presence became a fixture in the royal household, much to the chagrin of the nobility. The Russian court seethed with resentment. Many nobles viewed Rasputin as an outsider, a man who had no place in the intricate dance of Russian politics and power. To them, Rasputin was a charlatan, a dangerous interloper who had bewitched the Tsarina. His presence was a constant reminder of their diminishing influence and the Tsarina's growing isolation. Rasputin's reputation, already tarnished by rumors of debauchery and corruption, reached new lows. Stories of his wild exploits and alleged affairs spread like wildfire, further alienating him from the nobility and the public. He was accused of everything from sexual misconduct to manipulating government appointments. The press had a field day, with sensational headlines that painted him as the root of all the empire's problems. The newspapers, fueled by public outrage, painted him as the embodiment of evil. Every scandal, every misstep was magnified, turning Rasputin into a symbol of moral decay. The once revered holy man became a symbol of the rot within the Tsarist regime. His fall from grace was swift and brutal, mirroring the declining fortunes of the monarchy itself. A group of nobles, determined to save the monarchy from what they perceived as Rasputin's corrupting influence, decided to take matters into their own hands. They believed that removing Rasputin would restore stability and order to the empire. Led by Prince Felix Yusupov, they lured Rasputin to the Moika Palace. The plan was meticulously crafted, with every detail designed to ensure Rasputin's demise. There, in a scene straight out of a Gothic novel, they poisoned him, shot him multiple times, and finally, dumped his body in the Neva River. Despite their efforts, Rasputin's death was not immediate, adding to the legend of his almost supernatural resilience. Rasputin's murder, far from saving the monarchy, served only to hasten its demise. The act of violence underscored the desperation and disarray within the ruling class. It exposed the deep fissures within Russian society, the growing chasm between the ruling elite and the disillusioned masses. The assassination highlighted the fragility of the Tsarist regime. The Tsarina, devastated by the loss of her confidant, retreated further into herself, her faith in the monarchy shaken to its core. Her grief was palpable, and her isolation deepened. The stage was set for revolution. The countdown had begun. The assassination of Rasputin was not just the end of a man but the beginning of the end for an entire era in Russian history.